is virtually impossible to trace the exact origins of thrash metal. And if we take a look at the early thrash metal-like songs, we of course have to go back to Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Motorhead, and even Queen. Yeah, but what we can do is take a look at the evolution of thrash metal with one song per year, starting all the way in 1983, because that's when I believe thrash metal's year zero was. Hi. And all the way till today, limiting it to one song per band, and hopefully answer the question which seems to bother so many of whether thrash metal died in the 90s. Here you go.
Unleash the bastards now! Process speeds deep, blind at the power of sex. When twice a year will take the rain, blessed by the gods, city of God.
I think is cool is that quite a lot of those bands we just heard were actually guests on our channel in the past year. And who knows, maybe since I'm going all the way to San Francisco for Metallica's 40th anniversary shows, a little band we included in the year 1983 will be our guest sometime in the future. But anyways, I actually believe that what thrash metal did in the late 80s was exactly the same thing which heavy metal did 10 years earlier, when instead of naturally dying out like many other musical genres, it started constantly reinventing itself, pushing its own boundaries and broadening the limits of what is actually considered thrash metal. And that's exactly why in the list we could hear some of the most heavy, speedy songs with growling vocals and pretty much beer-drinking party music at the same time.
Well, let's have a party.
And of course, since so many thrash metal bands, just like their heavy metal predecessors, were actually able to make it into the mainstream, thrash metal was responsible for the development of many metal subgenres, paving way to death metal, black metal, and many other subgenres, including of course groove metal, which eventually led to the development of nu metal.
Why, God, why?
And so the answer to the question of whether thrash metal is still alive is definitely. Yes, it is true that thrash metal somewhat took a back seat in the 90s, but let's be honest here, that decade wasn't really the best for most of traditional metal genres.
Exactly.
And yet thrash metal was able to reinvent and reboot itself in the beginning of the 21st century. And that's why so many of the classical thrash metal bands which were active in the 80s were actually included post-2000s. I mean, that's when they wrote some of their best music.
Yes, that's true.
And of course, in addition to that, with the abundance of new thrash metal bands, I think it's safe to say that the genre is in safe hands. But what do you guys think? And what is your personal favorite thrash metal band? Please let us know in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching this short video, guys, and keep rocking.